welcome everyone. Good morning. My name is Josiah Katonga. I am the Managing Director at California State PTA. Thank you for being here and for being ready to champion arts education in your local community. All right. Before we begin, we need to provide instructions for translation services. Simultaneous interpretation is being provided in Spanish. Everyone must pick a language, so take a minute and please click the globe button at the bottom of the screen and choose your preferred language. If you choose Spanish, make sure to mute the original audio. Thank you.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, muchas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Agradecemos su presencia y queremos notificarles que estaremos proporcionando interpretación simultánea al español. Le pedimos por favor que siga las siguientes instrucciones para acceder a esta presentación en español en vivo. Si usted está acompañándonos a través de un computador, le pedimos que busque el globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Lo encuentra a mano derecha. Ahí puede ver que dice el lenguaje español, puede apagar el audio original para solo escuchar una voz. Si nos acompaña utilizando un teléfono inteligente o una tableta, vaya a los 3 puntos o la palabra more o más, ahí encontrará la función de interpretación, elegir el español y es importante que presione la palabra done o finalizado para poder tomar acción en la interpretación. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Heidi. If you need translation in another language, translated captions are provided by clicking on the captions button. Click on the up arrow and then click turn on the translation button. A pop-up window will show up and you can select which language you'd like the captions to be in. Thank you. All right, so we're together this morning because we all know the following. 1, we know that scientific studies consistently highlight the transformative impact of arts education on student learning and overall success. We know exposure to visual and performing arts correlates with increased attendance, reduced dropout rates, and heightened achievement in literacy and math, particularly benefiting English language learners and economically disadvantaged students. We know that arts education cultivates essential 21st century skills, including creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration. We know social emotional learning through the arts aids students in navigating personal challenges, addressing mental health, and fostering empathy in an era marked by growing polarization. We all know these things. It is, however, our job to make sure everyone in our school community understands this. From school board members, your superintendents, principals in your district, to the parent or guardian of every student in the district. Recognizing the many benefits of arts education highlights the urgency of prioritizing arts education now. Actually, if you don't mind moving on to slide number 3. Awesome. Thank you. The event today is presented by a coalition of organizations who want to make sure all students receive the benefits of arts education. California State PTA, Friends of Sacramento Arts, Arts for LA, the Arts Education Alliance of the Bay Area, and Create California. We are also very excited to have our guests, PBS SoCal, joining us today. Here is the agenda for our time together. We're going to be excited for PBS SoCal to share a new documentary about arts education and some accompanying resources for you to use. We're going to share details of the new money available to schools to support arts education and resources for advocates to ensure that their school teachers know about this money. We're going to encourage you to support arts education by completing a call to action. And finally, We will have some time at the end to take some of the questions that you might have to us. And now it is my pleasure to pass the floor to our guest speaker, Desiree Gutierrez, Senior Director, Impact and Partnership at PBS SoCal. Thanks for being with us today, Desiree.
Thank you for that introduction, Josiah. Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. I am Desiree Gutierrez, Senior Director of Impact and Partnerships at PBS SoCal. I want to thank Create California, Arts Education Alliance of the Bay Area, Arts for LA, California PTA, and Friends of Sacramento Arts for inviting us to participate as a guest in your meeting today and to share a new special on arts education that is coming to PBS. This Friday, April 26th at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is the premiere of Art Happens Here with John Lithgow, and it's going to be on PBS. The show will also be available to watch after the premiere on the PBS app. We can go to the next slide. In this 1-hour special, actor John Lithgow goes back to school to study dance, ceramics, silkscreen printing, and vocal jazz ensemble. And along the way, John interacts with students and their teachers and showcases the transformative power of arts education. Go to the next slide. And let's take a moment here to hear directly from John and take a look at the film.
Hello, I'm John Lithgow. Thank you for your interest in Art Happens Here and for taking the time to join in today's webinar. The development of Art Happens Here has been a true passion for me. Reflecting on my career, I know that I have professionally and personally benefited thanks to the educational access I had to the arts while growing up. And now, having served as co-chair of the Commission on the Arts for the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, I've also come to realize that despite all of its proven benefits, access to arts education is declining. And many young people are missing out on the joys, the lessons, and the personal development that come from exposure to the arts. These are some of the reasons that I decided to go back to school for Art Happens Here. I wanted to showcase the transformative power of arts education, and this project is a love letter to the teachers and students who bring arts education to life every day. As you leave today's webinar, I hope you'll be inspired to watch Art Happens Here when it premieres on PBS on April 26th. And I also want to invite you to share the show with your peers and network. Accompanying the show is a discussion guide designed specifically to facilitate conversations about the importance and value of the arts, along with activities for students, parents, teachers, and school administrators. Thank you so much, and please enjoy this sneak peek at Art Happens Here.
Education is such an important part of a child's growth, but education involves much more than just the basic academic subjects.
You guys know what it's like when there's a new kid. Be kind. I'm a little scared of that first note. Stage fright.
Arts are not only a fun thing for children, but they're an essential thing for kids.
Put it back on and then let it flap off again.
I can't.
I have to tell you, when I came in, I saw you guys sing, and I said, I want to do that. But it's something I'm no good at all. One more time?
Yeah.
I'm just screwing up on purpose, just so basic.
So I ventured back to school to showcase arts in education.
Thank you for this dance.
The arts give young people all sorts of tools to move on in life, even in the other areas of academia.
And is this actually a silk screen?
It hasn't been silk for about a couple hundred years.
Oh my God.
Did it?
How about that?
When you say a couple of hundred years, I used silk when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Dewey.
So
Yeah, I'm the Energizer Bunny. You need a new battery. They teach them discipline and hard work and patience and collaboration and cooperation and civility. They give young people an early sense of empathy.
Our collaboration. What's the name of the song about bopping?
Everybody's
Bob. If I were just to ask you to do that, would you be able to launch right into it now? Or have you forgotten?
right here. Us? Yes.
Yeah.
Some cats say that Bob is dead, but that captain lost his head. Tell that's where he's been misled, cause everybody's bopping.
See if we can find a way to show what it's like when a great teacher and an eager student in the arts make a discovery together. And I decided the best way to put on a show is to be a student again, to be a kid again. A big, kind of reckless experiment. Hi, everybody. I'm John Lithgow. Come along and watch me go back to school. Printmaking, ceramics, vocal jazz ensemble, and dance. And celebrate arts in education with a bunch of incredible kids. It's called Art Happens Here. I think that's the bell. Let's go. Let's go to class.
Okay. We think the film really does showcase the power of the arts, and research tells us just how powerful the arts really are. For young people, arts education has been shown to really have broad positive impacts, including performance in reading, writing, and math, positive social emotional outcomes, increased critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and reduced disciplinary infractions. Next slide. With all that data in mind, at PBS SoCal, we wanted to invite community and stakeholders that are interested and invested in educational outcomes to watch the special and discuss arts education. So we've created a discussion and activity guide that accompanies the show. The guide can be used after watching the full film or after watching the sizzle reel that you saw today. The guide is meant to be flexible and can be used by parents at a PTA meeting, for professional development sessions, or even with students in after-school programs. Next slide. Wherever you wish to wherever you wish to screen the show and use the guide, our hope is that it will stimulate conversation about the arts. And to help with that, the activity guide includes increased background and data on arts education, so going more in depth on some of that data I've shared with you, some discussion questions to get the conversation started, and there are 3 activities, each with a different audience group in mind. One for school administrators and PTAs, another for educators, and another for students. Next slide. If you're interested in hosting a screening and using the discussion and activity guide, all the resources will be available on the PBS SoCal website. The link is being put in the chat. PBS SoCal Events Resource Library is our one-stop shop for community partners to access PBS SoCal content, along with resources and tools to help facilitate an event. We expect Art Happens Here to be available on that site on April 29th. And again, if you just want to watch Art Happens Here, it will premiere locally on PBS stations this Friday at 10 p.m. and will be available to stream on the PBS app after that. And with that, it wraps up my presentation. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you this morning. If you have any questions about Art Happens Here or the discussion guide, feel free to use the Q&A feature and I will answer those in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Desiree, for that presentation, and thank you to our guests, PBS SoCal, for sharing this really incredible documentary and all of the accompanying resources. My name is Adelaide Kuhn, and I am Program Director at Create California. I work to support advocates around the state who are working to ensure students receive a high-quality, culturally responsive arts education. California's state education code promises that every 1st through 12th grade student receives classes in music, dance, theater, and visual arts. You can see on the slide here the 2 sections of education code that I am referencing. Unfortunately, 9 in 10 California schools continue to fall short of complying with this education code that we just shared. And we know that low-income students, Black and Brown students, and students living in rural areas are most affected by inequitable access to visual and performing arts. Luckily, I'm here to say that we have good news on this front. In November 2022, Proposition 28, the Arts and Music in Schools Act, was passed overwhelmingly by California voters. This new law provides a minimum source of annual funding to supplement arts education programs for students attending California's public schools. This funding is ongoing funding that schools will receive each year from now until eternity, hopefully. There is an equity-based formula for the allocation. So the students who need more support will receive, their schools will receive additional funds. This year, for the 2023-2024 school year, there is $938 million, especially for arts education in our schools. This funding is required to expand arts education programs and not replace existing funding for arts education in schools. Most of the funding, 80% of the funding, is required to be spent on teachers to provide instruction in arts education disciplines. There are a lot of details about Proposition 28, a lot of twists and turns. School funding is very complicated. And we have many resources to give you all of the details. We have a flyer specifically for families that provides more details. There's also many details on the California Department of Education website, and both of those links will be in the chat. But I want to be very clear about something. It is not your job as advocates to know all of these details. You really need to know 2 things to be a good advocate for Prop 28. First, you need to know that the money is supposed to provide more arts education. More is more here. And then secondly, you need to know about these other places that have more information and be able to direct your school leaders there. So like I mentioned, there's the California Department of Education website, as well as the Create California website that has resources that we have developed in partnership with other organizations that are there to support school leaders in making sure that they are properly implementing Prop 28. Advocates are essential to the success of Prop 28, and the role of advocates, there's a number of roles. First, to ensure that the funds do indeed expand arts education programs and expand access for students. Secondly, it's important for advocates to request that community voice, community input is included in decisions. And then finally, to be there to offer support to school leaders. Being a school leader is a difficult job. They are constantly juggling priorities, and it's important to be there to offer support and remind them that this money is there and needs to be spent in expanding arts education for students. So this is really where the ask for the plan comes in. A key to success of Proposition 28 will be that both districts and school sites have plans for how to support and sustain arts education programs. So first, at the district level, it's important to have a strategic arts education plan that outlines how this new money will be spent, as well as lays out the details for the critical components of strong arts education programs, which include things like staffing, materials and equipment, facilities, scheduling, standards-based curriculum, and partnerships with community organizations. So that's the big vision. That plan is at the district level. At the school site level, there's also an expenditure plan that schools are required to create that outlines how they will be spending the Prop 28 funds that each school site receives. And in the interest of transparency, these plans really should be shared with the school community so that they know how the money is being used to expand access for students. So now that we've given some background on Prop 28 and explained your role, now it is time to take action. So first, we're going to take a pause. I'm going to set a timer here, and we're going to each of us will create a list of at least 5 people that we will reach out to after this event to share the information that we are offering. So both the resources that Desiree shared from PBS SoCal, as well as the resources from all of the other partners on this webinar. So we're going to pause and make your list. You'll have the links dropped in the chat. We're also going to send you a follow-up email. So it will make it very easy for you to just forward this email on to 5 other people. And spreading the word about Proposition 28 and informing your community is a key action here. So let's pause and take a moment, grab your pen and paper or pull up your email and start typing in email addresses for at least 5 people that you're going to email these resources to. Okay, I gave you 49 seconds. I think you were all able to do it. If not, keep thinking. Perfect. Okay, so now my colleague Katia put a link in the chat. So please click the link in the chat. A web page will pop up. Put in your address. This is a tool that will help you send a letter directly to your school board members and superintendent about Proposition 28. And this letter includes 2 key questions. First question, how do school sites plan to implement Prop 28 to expand access to arts education? And then the second question is, what is the district's vision for expanding and sustaining arts education offerings? And in addition to these 2 questions, the letter offers links that will help school leaders implement Proposition 28, things like planning toolkits, budget templates, etc. So please go ahead right now and put in your address and send the letter to your school leaders. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. This is your first step to beginning advocacy for Prop 28. And before we shift over, we have a good amount of time here to take some questions, about 15 minutes. And before we shift over to doing that, I do want to share a number of resources with you. Katya, if you would just advance the slides, thank you. So these are resources that many of them have already been dropped in the chat, but we have the California Department of Education website, where you go if you want to do a deep dive on the nitty-gritty details of Proposition 28, a great place to send your school leaders if they need help and want answers. Tools for advocates. This is a page on the Create California website that was created in partnership with the organizations on presenting this event: California State PTA, Arts at Alliance of the Bay Area, Arts for LA, Friends of Sacramento Arts. We work together on this page that includes an example presentation for a PTA, PTO meeting or a school board meeting. It includes social media graphics and posts, talking points, an FAQ page, really a great hub to go for anyone interested in advocating for Prop 28. The Know Your Rights page is another page on the Create California website, created in partnership with ACLU SoCal and ACLU NorCal, which just outlines exactly what it says, your rights to a public education, and specifically related to Prop 28. And then finally, some information about the teacher pipeline in California. So those are going to be linked in the deck, which will be sent out. They're in the chat. And these are more resources to share with your community and school leaders as they need them. Okay, so I am going to now pass the floor off to my colleague, Ricky, to introduce themselves and facilitate the Q&A section of our time together.
Hi, folks. Good morning. Thanks for being here. My name is Ricky Aviles. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy with Arts for LA, and I'm going to be answering a few of the questions that came in from you all in advance of the webinar. And I know there's some questions being answered in the chat still too, or in the Q&A feature. For those of you who are unable to access the link that was shared to send the letter, please know you'll also receive it in a follow-up email, and you'll be able to do it after this webinar. So the first question we got was, what role can nonprofit arts organizations play? And I love this question because we are a nonprofit arts organization and have 185 organizational members who ask the same question. The first thing I'll say is keep an eye out for a sign-on letter to the governor and State Superintendent Thurmond regarding Prop 28 transparency and publicly available expenditure plans. Arts for LA and Arts at Alliance of the Bay Area will also be releasing a resource document with helpful info, FAQs, a regional letter template that you can send to your school board members or principals to request a meeting and ask how you can get involved. And then we're also going to list some best practices for partnering with schools. Arts for LA highly recommends leaning into professional development programming. Even if a school can't bring you on as a partner for a residency, they may be able to bring you on to support their teachers with training. Second question we received is, how do you build an effective art program to meet the needs of a diverse student population? This is a really excellent question. There are a lot of different resources you can use, but the ones I'll point you to are the Arts Council of Santa Cruz has an excellent resource on artist-teacher partnerships. And that really dials in on effective and sustainable programming that centers culturally responsive curriculum and arts integration. And building on that, I do recommend leaning into cultural responsiveness, which means adapting existing programs and curriculum based on student needs. And to build new programs, it's always wise to work with community-based organizations and regional arts agencies, which often hire and center teaching artists that reflect the populations they serve. And finally, I'd recommend reviewing the Department of Education's Arts Education Framework if you aren't already familiar with that. The third question, How does Prop 28 impact any current funding that districts have created towards arts education in schools? This type of funding can come from foundations, is an example that was given. What's exciting is that this funding is meant to supplement existing funding, as you've heard so many times in the webinar already. More money for more arts. It does not redirect existing dollars, and it's not supposed to. If your school is receiving private donations or support from foundations, this money should be used to introduce new programming and expand arts offerings on campus. If our PTA helps to fund an arts or music program this year, does that disqualify using Prop 28 funding for such programs? I know this has come up a couple times in the Q&A feature as well. It doesn't necessarily disqualify funds from being used on that program, but it has to expand the program and existing opportunities at the school. It cannot replace the money already being spent on the program. An example I can give is if PTA is funding the school choir, let's say at $2,000, Prop 28 funds cannot be used to replace that $2,000. It might instead be used to supplement the experience of choir students by offering a show choir, an additional course, offering a musical theater production on campus. The bottom line is that the money is meant to supplement and expand the number of programs and arts teachers on campus, not to replace existing funding. It's very nuanced, and so I definitely encourage you to review the FAQs on the Department of Education's website. What remedies can we take with our local school board and superintendent when there is proof of Prop 28 funds being misused? The first resource I'd point you to is Create Californians' Know Your Rights page, which I'm sure will be dropped in the chat. And I'd also encourage you to send your report of misused funds to the school board, your local elected officials, and the state superintendent, and attach proof when you can. Next question is, how do parents keep school districts accountable for providing equitable access to the arts at every grade level? You ask for the plan, much like Adelaide was sharing earlier. Ask that the plan be shared publicly so all parents can see how the money is going to be spent. Follow up with your principal to see if the proposed programs are being implemented. Ask how many new arts teachers have been hired. Again, you should be seeing an increase in programming or the number of arts teachers at your child's school. If not, the money is being used inappropriately. What can we as parents do to ensure Prop 28 funds are spent locally on increasing arts education opportunities for our children? The short answer in relation to the previous question is follow up with elected officials, especially your school board members and the state superintendent. That's how accountability is best achieved. Those are the questions we received in advance. But I do believe we have some extra time to take questions from the feature. Is that correct, Adelaide?
Sure, let's take a couple. 5 minutes. Ricky, do you want to do that or you want me to jump in?
Yeah, let's tag team it. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Sure. I'm happy to start. I do see there are a couple of questions related to specific scenarios that are playing out at school sites or school districts. And I would say if you have connected with your school leader and you feel like you haven't received a satisfactory answer, please do check out the Know Your Rights page. There is a email address. I'm putting it in the chat right now, prop28@cde.ca.gov. And folks do get answers when they send their questions to this email address. So if you've connected with your school leader and you're not finding the information and answers that you need on our website or on the Know Your Rights page, do feel free to reach out to prop28@cde.ca.gov with your questions, and you can get an answer directly from someone at the Department of Education.
Excellent. See a few other questions that are being answered in the feature, but I'll go ahead and answer them out loud as well. One of the ones I saw pop up are, what are the options if there is not credential arts teachers available? I believe Josiah is working on this answer right now. The funds can be spent on certificated and classified employees, which means you can hire a teaching artist as a classified employees. There are districts who have done that. But obviously the goal is to have full-time arts teachers on campus. This is a question that comes up a lot because we're trying to find solutions to make it easier to get credentials for folks who are interested. And so I would say stay tuned with your local arts agencies and nonprofits like ours to figure out what some of those pathways might look like. Can nonprofits participate in this program? Nonprofits, as I mentioned a little earlier in the questions that were submitted in advance, nonprofits can play a role by partnering with schools. I think the best place to start is to reach out to your district or your school site and ask how you can work with them. They are supposed to be engaging community members, parents, and students to see how the money can be spent on campus. And so definitely reach out and ask how you can be part of the solution.
I'm seeing a question about if it's better to contact leaders at the district level or leaders at the school site level, depending on the size of the district. And the truth is that question it's playing out differently all over the state in different districts. And so what I would recommend is doing both. If you have a child attending a school site in a district, I would contact the principal. I would also contact the school leaders at the district level, the superintendent and the school board members. I would do both. We're seeing in some contexts, the principals of the school sites are just they're receiving the amount of money they have to spend and making their own plan. In other areas, the decision making is happening more at the district level. So to cover your bases, I would reach out to both. See, there's a question about examples of strategic plans. There are some examples on our website. There's also this incredible directory of plans in Los Angeles County, which I believe was dropped earlier in the chat. I'll find it in just a moment. We will also make sure that that is included in the follow-up email as well, so that you can get a sense of what oh, thanks, Katya, what a strategic arts education plan looks like for sure. Let's take one or two more, Ricky.
Great. There were a couple questions that popped up about whether the programming has to happen during the school day or after school. I believe Allison answered one of those questions, and either or. It can happen after school as well. So no concerns there.
There's a question about the timing of the funds. So each year that a school receives an allocation, they have 3 years to spend that money. So folks are expressing concern that their school hasn't spent the money this year and worrying it will go away. It will not go away. There's 3 years to spend that money. So that gives schools and districts some much needed flexibility to create a plan. That's why that's the beauty of this. They have school districts, school sites have time to make a plan to make sure that the funds are used in the best way possible. See a question about what's covered under arts. That's a great, Nina, thank you for dropping the Department of Ed link. There's a long list of what qualifies as arts on the website. Any last one you want to take, Ricky, before we wrap up and share?
Yeah, I guess there are a lot of overlapping questions, and so just a general response to you all, definitely review the Department of Education's website and the FAQs. A lot of responses to these questions are listed there. I know it can be pretty hefty, but there's really valuable information on that website. And I just highly encourage, when you're reaching out to your school site leaders, just ask them what is the plan? Have you engaged families about how the money is going to be spent? And can you follow up with me when the new programming is being implemented? I think that's the way you really approach it. It's about collaboration, not necessarily about scolding. How can we be a part of the solution together and make sure that all students are getting access to arts education programs and arts teachers? And so that's where I'll end is really this money should be used to expand the number of arts teachers on campus. If there's already a theater teacher, but there's no visual arts, ask if that school can get a visual arts teacher on campus. That's the goal. But thank you all for your questions.
Thanks, Ricky. And I did just put my email address into the chat. And if you don't feel like we answered your question and haven't offered resources that will answer your question, please, you're welcome to reach out to me and I'll do my best. I don't make any promises, but I will promise to do my best to answer your question. And I will now send it over to my colleague Katya to share an upcoming event that I hope many of you will join us at.
Thank you, Adelaide, and thank you, Ricky, and thank you to our other panelists who are answering questions in the Q&A feature. So join us for an upcoming Arts Now meetup on May 21st at 11 a.m. We encourage, if you came today, to also attend this meeting. If you have any follow-up questions you'd like to ask Adelaide and I, we will be there facilitating the conversation. And it's also a great way to connect with other advocates across the state of California. So we would love to see you there if you can make it. Again, it's a place where we can discuss Prop 28 or arts education across the state. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can also attend this meeting. And Adeline and I would be there facilitating and doing our best to answer and provide resources. So we would love to see you there if you can attend. And the registration link is dropped in the chat. And of course, we will send a follow-up email with all the resources shared today, including from PBS SoCal, from the California Department of Education, and from Create California. We have a plethora of resources there. And of course, we will also be sharing our partner organizations, AABA, Arts for LA, California PTA, Friends of Sacramento Arts. We will be sharing their websites and their resources as well. So you will be receiving an email following up in about a week or so with the recording and all these resources. So I think that we're coming at the end of our webinar. So thank you all so much for attending today and participating and asking these wonderful questions. We are very excited for this new funding to come in about Prop 28 and arts education. So thank you all so much. If you have, again, any follow-up questions, feel free to attend the Arts Now meetup on May 21st or to email Adelaide and I with any questions that you may have. Thank you again, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.